and really looking at how we might keep in touch with what's going on online, and how we relate that back to what you're going to do next, how you're going to work in the future. So I've called this session the Digital Trends Toolkit, and I hope you will find it useful. Okay. The first thing I want to do is I want you to all get out a piece of paper.
This
all right?
is a
Could you
demonstration
all get
of
something to write on?
Wirecast.
Don't mind if you write on your phone or a laptop, but something that you can jot notes on. What I did to start off today was to go through and think about the 30 things that I could find that have been interesting me since the beginning of the year. What were the is this important? Is this something that, are you going to be spending your time developing apps for watches or hats or suits or clothing or cars? Is that a big change in the way that you're going to be thinking about things? Now, don't worry about Pebble. The trend I'm looking at is not simply Pebble, but it is the whole trend towards smartwatches. I don't know how many of you have an iPhone and use Siri. Okay. I don't know how many of you have looked at Wolfram Alpha or have ever looked at a mathematical modeling system called Mathematica. But there is a company that you probably don't know about called Wolfram, run by a guy called Stephen Wolfram, and they are one of the big hidden players that I think we are going to hear a lot more about. And they've announced recently something that's coming called the Wolfram language. They're taking the programming language that's been built into Mathematica, the programming language that underpins the Wolfram Alpha service, which also happens to power Siri and a number of other intelligent systems, and they are going to take that language and make it available as a more general programming language.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Symbolic computing, very, very interesting, definitely worth having a look. This sort of stuff pops up all the time, doesn't it? We see new initiatives by people. Sometimes we don't necessarily notice them because we may not be keeping an eye on that particular thing. But this isn't arriving yet. It says coming soon. The Wolfram Programming Cloud. It was announced about 6 weeks ago. But certainly something that I think we should be keeping an eye on. Next thing we talked about in the previous lecture is Shopify. Shopify, one of a number of systems in which you can build your own e-commerce store, lowering the barrier to entry, letting people with no computer science experience be able to start selling and doing things. Is that a trend we need to worry about? What does a world look like in which we don't need professional programmers except to build tools? Or we always need professional programmers because actually we need those people to make the tools. Recently, Shopify, a Canadian company, raised $100 million, valuing their company at $1 billion. Okay, more and more companies. That word $1 billion is happening more and more. And what do we think about that? So, if you think that trends like Shopify are the most important thing, then put that in your top 5. Oculus Rift. How many of you have heard of Oculus Rift? All right, is this the thing that you're now dying to get your hands on? Are you prepared to spend £350 on the development kit so that you can be designing games and virtual shopping and other experiences using this, which has been described as the best low-cost VR helmet? All right, so maybe that's one of the things that you put on your list. How about another part of the connected world? A world in which your home is being monitored and controlled by electronics, your car, your health, and all these things. This was a company called Nest. Nest produce a very nice looking and interesting thermometer which allows you to control your air conditioning or your central heating. They've just released a new fire detector and carbon monoxide detector. And what makes them interesting is that they were recently acquired by Google. So Google buying into Nest I think, along with some of the other things it's doing, and we can probably spot a pattern here in terms of what's going on. Is this the sort of thing that you're going to be working on? Are you working on the connected world? Is that what you're going to be doing? Yesterday, Microsoft shares rose dramatically when they announced that they were likely to produce Office for the iPad. Okay, is this the final opportunity for Microsoft to really embrace the tablet world, or is this just part of their longer strategy of devices and services that include all the things they've done so far? They're an old company in some senses. They've been around quite a long time. Are they the sort of company you're going to work for? Or, as they change their strategies, are they the sort of people we're going to be working for together? But that was just yesterday, very interesting in terms of what they're thinking of doing. How about glass? Is that something you want? All right, I have one. I have one back in Singapore. I have to say I feel a bit of an idiot wearing it. Okay, in some ways I'm more interested in Oculus Rift. I suspect that I'm one of the few people who has one in Singapore, and I haven't yet decided to go to a restaurant or go for a walk wearing it, because I think £1,000 a day by putting out an app that's incredibly irritating. I've all played it, and it's great in some ways, but is that how you're going to be making a living? All right, speculatively. And if so, how many Flappy Birds have each of you got inside you? Are you able to produce lots of different games that are going to do things? But that seems to be one of the things that have happened. Oh, back to Google again, this time with Google Car. Google seems to be getting their fingers into every pie, don't they? And maybe that's it. Maybe that's what we've now reached, is a situation in which we can expect whatever we happen to be doing, whatever part of industry we're going to work in, we'll actually end up working some way connected to one of the big companies like Google or Facebook or Apple or somebody else. And there's Facebook, now part of launching a set of new apps. Obviously they're acquiring various different people. But here is Facebook Paper. Facebook Paper is a news application for browsing news, and supposedly very nice. But is that the sort of thing? Is Facebook's new strategy of actually starting to embrace other categories of information beyond the social network? Is that where we should be putting our effort? What about our personal and health data? We've had some stories in the last few weeks about the move to putting NHS data online.
Is
that a big story? Is that a small story? Is that the sort of thing that you're going to be part of? We have to we'll wait and see in a minute, all right? What about cyberbullying? The technology has made these things much more straightforward, and bullying has always taken place, but now it's easier for the bully to bully without necessarily being spotted. In other words, to hide behind the bullying. It's less direct. This is a big part of what we're going to be facing up to as we go forward. Finally, a cloud of your own, all right? The personal cloud, the idea that you take everything that you love and want to share with you, that now instead of going out and renting a piece of cloud space from Dropbox or iCloud, the idea that we have a server in our own home that provides our cloud to the rest of the world, allowing us to share things or whatever.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Not just small companies like Western Devices, but also companies like Oracle. This was actually not about clouds again, although it's of course about cloud, but providing something as a service. In this particular case, the idea of providing platform as a service. If you are working in an IT department and you're providing your users with a whole range of different things like email and calendaring and messaging and web publishing and whatever, actually today you don't have to build a system with all those things. You can now go and rent a platform as a service where you simply configure the service. Google Apps being an example of that, and many, many more. How does that change what you will be doing? Are you going to be building new apps, building new services? Are you going to be doing the wiring in the background or monitoring these sorts of systems? Or are you going to be configuring them for customers as we go forward?
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
IBM, big computer company 50 years ago, and a PC company, and now a consultancy that has really revitalized itself by building on top of open source and having some very specific directions to go in. The Smarter Planet Initiative, very interesting. How do we instrument the planet? How do we instrument cities so that we can use the information we get back from that to create a better world, to create a better transport system, to create better distribution mechanisms? This seems to me to be a part of the world that is definitely interesting, particularly coming from a city like Singapore, which is working with IBM very much on how to improve the lives of Singaporeans and visitors through the Smarter Planet Initiative. So is that the sort of thing that you think you will be doing? We saw fiber.
This is a demonstration of
we mentioned it in a
Wirecast.
previous lecture. Is that what you're going to be doing? Selling your services for a fiver? $5, £3.50. Go online, sell yourself. I will design professional business flyer or brochure for $5. Okay? Is that the economy that we're going to be working in? The sort of equivalent in some senses of working in McDonald's, perhaps, but free to do what you want. You can get up when you like, you can go to bed when you like, you can work as much as you like. Maybe you have a friend who works with you, who actually you outsource the work to, and you pay $3 to. There are all sorts of possibilities. Maybe you're working with templates. But is that the way the world is going? NFC. Paying by phone, using it instead of a travel card. The movement away from the credit card towards the phone as a credit card, a soft credit card. How does that change the way payment works? How does it change the way in which marketing and the way you identify yourself in a store works? This is only one of the technologies also that's being pushed to do this sort of thing. We're seeing more and more Bluetooth, low energy Bluetooth being offered as an alternative to NFC. So is that one of the important things that you're going to be working with?
This is a demonstration
I had to put
of
Samsung.
Wirecast.
I was going to put Apple, and I thought, no, I'll put Samsung, because Samsung are challenging most of the technology companies in every possible category. In other words, they are they're challenging in the home electronics, in the smartwatches, in the phones, in the televisions, in entertainment. A giant company. Are they the ones to watch? Are we all be working for Samsung in a few years' time as they do things? And are they going to be more important to the supply chain than Google, for example, because they'll license all the right software and do good stuff with it? I put up Netflix, okay, because Netflix has changed lots of things about the way that television companies see television. It's one of the reasons I think that the BBC felt it was possible to cut costs by doing BBC Three online, because many of us are now consuming television in a completely different way. The interesting thing about this as a way of consuming television is that instead of advertising, we pay a very small subscription, and if you use it a lot, it's actually relatively inexpensive compared with going to the cinema or downloading films if you pay for them. So is this the important company? House of Cards won a vast number of awards this year. Really great television, but completely changing the way that media is being consumed. Similarly, but very different, Uber.
This is a demonstration
I don't know how
of
many of you
Wirecast.
used Uber, but Uber is a car service that is being introduced in cities across the world, allowing people to order a cab from an app. It's a little bit like Halo here, but it's much more ubiquitous, and it doesn't rely on black cabs. Will it break the black cabs? I recently took a trip to the airport with Addison Lee at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he said all the good drivers had left to go and work for Uber.
This
Because
is a
Uber put them in
demonstration
charge
of
of
Wirecast.
what they were doing. You don't work for Uber. You join Uber as a driver. Is that part of everything that's going to matter to us? Which is that we're going to be looking at every bits of business, changing in order to accommodate the technology that we now all have. This is a marketplace. This is a marketplace, one of many marketplaces now for healthcare in
This is a
in the
demonstration
US.
of Wirecast.
Specialist marketplaces. We all know about eBay. We all know about marketplaces like Money Supermarket or whatever. But increasingly, this is moving into a professional and B2B area. And this is a place to go and buy healthcare in a country like US where healthcare isn't provided by the state. WhatsApp. We know about WhatsApp. Another company bought
This is a
$19
demonstration
billion
of
by
Wirecast.
Facebook. Is that is that the future that you want to be part of, which is building an app that then gets acquired for $19 billion? I think I read somewhere there's only about 300 people working for WhatsApp. So think of the amount of money being made by each of those people. Okay, in their business in China and then coming to the West to sell better quality technology. We
This
saw
is a
that
demonstration of Wirecast.
Taobao, part of Alibaba, is a big e-commerce marketplace now lining up to join the American stock market. So China's not simply a place of copying. So China's now a place of innovation and a place of creativity. And I certainly think that WeChat is probably a lot nicer in many respects than WhatsApp. Well worth having a look at if you're minded to have
This
yet
is a
another
demonstration of
communications
Wirecast.
platform. Then this would be one that I would look at. Another health app caught my eye, and maybe this is the way forward. Maybe it's all about health, and maybe it's all about things like monitoring your own blood pressure and taking care of yourself. Can you just imagine extending the power of the iPhone to have many more sensors and ideas so that you can use it for taking your blood pressure, you can use it for
This
maybe
is a
a
demonstration
breathalyzer
of
after you get out for a
Wirecast.
drink before you get in the car. We're seeing that instrumentation thing yet again in this example. I couldn't put in anonymous and not put in the NSA. The NSA, the American Security Service, who are claimed to be spying on everything that we do with the help of the GCHQ here in the UK. Is this deliberate, or is it for us to be thinking about? All right, I'm going to go back and ask you the question. I need to write down 5 things each. Okay, I'm going to pick on a few of you, get you to tell us what the 5 are. A little bit about why.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Okay, you at the front. Would you like to start by
This
telling us
is a
what your 5
demonstration of Wirecast.
are? I say, what things that are going to affect you personally? What do you think? Which things? Come on. Gonna try.
This is a
Come on, you're
demonstration
on
of Wirecast.
What? Self-driving cars, okay, that's good, yeah. What else?
other services such as like eBay and Argos, where you can deliver.
This is
your
a
parcels to
demonstration
other
of
retailers
Wirecast.
as retail shops.
Yeah.
You pick it up in a shop.
Definitely. How are you going to work in this world? What are you going to be doing? Are you doing something that's different from all of this? In other words, is there another parallel universe over here where stuff goes on differently and you're going to be working in that world? Or is this the world you're going to be working in? What do you think? If you could choose to work on for one of these projects, what would you do?
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
I'll do 3D printing.
Okay, right. Why? What would you do?
It's just interesting me. I've just been keeping up quite up to date with it really. It's just kind of like fascinating at the moment.
And what's the price point at which you'll buy one?
I'm actually saving at the moment.
Very good.
My friend works at Macklin. I'll probably spend about £1,500, £2,000 a month.
You're going to get a pretty good one for that price if you wait.
Yeah.
It's a bit like buying a television, isn't it? The price is going to fall.
You can get a good £700.
All right. There's competition in different ways. No. That's interesting. You. Hasn't crashed on me for ages. Stay back.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Which is
Wirecast.
in the world. I tried to represent these on in a picture, all right, in order to give you some idea of where I saw the clusters of things. And I put these clustered in 4 areas. Okay, and these are the things that I think you should be thinking about studying. If I was redesigning this course from scratch, these are probably the 4 courses that I would now want
This
to
is
offer.
a demonstration of
They
Wirecast.
would be people, call that human-computer interaction, call it all the things to do with the different markets that exist, what people want in the world, if games would go in there, all right, all sorts of things around the people, all right. I'd also put in there the crowd and the ability to empower the crowd. But that's very much about need, about people wanting stuff.
This
Data.
is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Until now, computing has generally been about algorithms. Today, computing is much more about data. And it's now about how we mine data and find stuff inside that data. There is a huge overlap between data and people. And that data and people overlap is everything from Facebook News to the power of the crowds, to what's happening with the NSA, with NHS data, with the personal cloud, all those sorts of things.
This is a
The physical
demonstration of
world.
Wirecast.
If we stepped back 2 or 3 years, the physical world had yet really to be overlapped by the digital world. They were still fairly separate. And so I take up with you the 3D printing, glass, Nest, cars, locker, all changing the relationship between stuff and data. And therefore, that's a very important area to be in.
This is a
The final thing out there
demonstration
in
of
purple
Wirecast.
is everything as a service. And as a mental experiment, this is a really good thing for you to try and do, is to work out how you could turn anything that happens in the world into a service. Okay? If you were a company that sells cleaning products, you sell Harpic or Sif or something like that, you're in the moving of bits and of stuff
This
around
is a
the planet.
demonstration of
If
Wirecast.
you imagine changing that and becoming a company that offers cleaning services, all right, then you've changed what you're doing into a service. And people like Uber are changing the possibility of car ownership into a service, whether you have a driver, all right? Now, we know what taxis are, because taxis have existed for a long period of time. Uber's not quite a taxi. Uber's a car when you need it. Uber has a lot more to do with car clubs.
This
But
is a
you can see that
demonstration of
driving-
Wirecast.
becomes a service rather than a product. And that really could mess up the car industry. If it took shape. Self-driving cars fit in there as well, because self-driving cars, yes, you could imagine that they, you know, that you own one, but why would you own it? Surprisingly, is Wolfram, okay? I mean, I'm a geek at heart, and I think that some of the stuff that's going on around symbolic computing, I think is absolutely fascinating. I think that the sorts of agents and services that we may be able to
This
build
is a demonstration of
will be very, very
Wirecast.
interesting indeed. I would go and look at that if I was you. I'd sign up for the beta, all right? No idea when it's going to come, no idea whether it will cost anything, but you can play around with some of the ideas with a demo version or a free trial version of Mathematica at the moment. If you're really not into mathematics, don't be afraid by the fact that it's called Mathematica, because I think it has some interesting ideas. If you're interested in another way, go and have a look at it via Wolfram Alpha, because Wolfram Alpha is
This
the
is a
first of their web
demonstration of
services.
Wirecast.
They did get their act together. I think some very, very interesting things will happen there. Some of my problems are already solved. Okay, I couldn't care less whether BBC Three goes to iPlayer or not, because I never watch anything on live television anyway. All right, I'm entirely, you know, I'm Netflix, iPlayer. Why would I want to watch anything when it happens to be on? It's really inconvenient. So, you know, I'm a believer in those sorts of things.
This is a
I'm
demonstration
really interested
of
in the power of
Wirecast.
crowd. I think the idea of crowdsourcing and the idea of crowd idea generation, really very, very interesting indeed. The connected world, smartwatches, blood pressure, I think this will make a huge difference to the way people live. I think we're getting all sorts of things. If you keep an eye on what's happening around the Internet of Things, you'll see all sorts of gadgets being produced.
This
So
is a
4 things
demonstration of
are the big
Wirecast.
trends. Everything that can be offered as a service will be. Okay? So if you can think of a physical thing that you can currently buy, try and imagine it can be made into a service. Data is the key resource, and you should become as good as you can at finding, manipulating, and visualizing data. And if you're not particularly mathematical or not particularly technical, find other ways of
This
doing it.
is a
We've had some
demonstration of
lectures around that the
Wirecast.
last few weeks. The customer is at the heart of the transaction, the person who you're doing this for. Delighting the customer, delighting the user, that's why we all signed up to Facebook. We didn't sign up to Facebook because it was clever software, because it's not particularly, well, it wasn't clever software until it got very big, all right? We're not, Facebook is not great because it's got hugely complicated software behind it. It's great because people love what they can
This
do.
is a demonstration
So
of
customer
Wirecast.
centricity, putting the customer at the heart of every transaction is going to be key. And the digitization of the physical world. Finding ways of doing things we've traditionally done with atoms and now doing those with bits is going to be key. And those are the ones I would definitely watch. So how are you going to explore those ideas? You're going to learn to find new services and APIs, and you're going to build new services with them. The days of starting with a clean,
This is a
compiler
demonstration of
starting with a
Wirecast.
text editor and saying I'm going to build something without talking to the outside world are over. All right, you're going to be linked into other things. So you need to learn to find new APIs, new services all of the time. You need to explore data and build services that manipulate and visualize data. Okay? So you've got to find data and find out what's happening there. You've got to value the networked customer, their identity, their power, and their privacy.
This is a
And I'm
demonstration
excited
of
by Anonymous.
Wirecast.
I'm excited by the idea that there are groups of people who are going to go around and say, look, we cannot have a world in which you can't go off the grid. You've got to be allowed to be anonymous. You've got to be allowed to step away from your devices. All right? And I'm pleased that there are people fighting for that. We heard Tim Berners-Lee and Edward Snowden this week at TED both saying the same thing. The web needs a new set of rules about what we can and can't do.
This is a
We need to make sure
demonstration of Wirecast.
everybody understands what's being done in their name, and we need to let people make the choices around the trade-offs. You know, I'd be happy to sometimes pay for stuff and this is one of the interesting things about WhatsApp. If you're on Android, you're already used to paying $1 a year for it, okay? And they've said that they're not going to share their data with Facebook now that they have merged or been bought by Facebook. Lots of interesting things going on there. But value the network customer, their identity, their power, and their
This
privacy.
is a demonstration
And
of
then embed
Wirecast.
digital in every part of the physical world. We think of the big problems around energy, who care about it, all right?
This
We're
is
not-
a
I'm not-
demonstration of
it's not
Wirecast.
just reading the news. Metro isn't probably good enough. All right, you need to go beyond the metro in trying to understand what's going on in the general and financial stories. Okay, that's just the basic. You then need to research the stories that seem interesting, and you need to be able to use advanced queries in Google to make sure that you're not just seeing the things that the Google algorithm is telling you. So you need to be able to change the
This
date
is
on
a
your Google
demonstration
search, or
of
look and see
Wirecast.
whether the Wall Street Journal has an opinion on something by using the site parameter. You need to become good at searching so you're not locked into the algorithmic view of what is there. You need to read specialist social news aggregators such as Hacker News and Reddit. Okay? Reddit is becoming incredibly important in helping people curate the news and understanding what's going on, what's important to
This
people.
is a demonstration of
Definitely,
Wirecast.
Reddit is worth looking at. You need to use Quora to find answers. In my world, Quora is my favorite social network. I read it every single day, see what's going on, and it will tell me some of the things that are happening. You need to find specialist sites and blogs that focus on the areas you're interested in. You need to set up Google Listing and the buying of it when it's produced. Because it's the idea you're buying, not the Pebble watch, which is actually slightly disappointing. But it's the idea of the Pebble watch is what people invested in. The fact that you've got a watch at the end is a nice thing, but it's so if you want to see what's going on, going to
This
Kickstarter,
is a
Indiegogo, and
demonstration
some of
of
the others,
Wirecast.
they'll give you this impression of what's important to people, what's getting funded. It's also quite fun. So, Hacker News. I don't know how many of you read Hacker News regularly, but just being able to see what is interesting. This was Hacker News this morning, and you just need to learn to scan it. All right, you're not supposed to read every one of those, but just anything that sort of makes you, oh, that's
This is a
interesting.
demonstration
All
of
right.
Wirecast.
The Oculus Rift developer kit going on sale for $350. Likely ships in July. Yeah, that's one of the things you might then explore further if you're interested in games and VR. All right, but Hacker News definitely worth a regular look. You may not like to read it like that. You may prefer to read it like this. I use an app on my phone called Pulse, at pulse.me. Pulse.me is actually now owned by
This is a
LinkedIn,
demonstration of
but it gives
Wirecast.
me the news in a slightly more interesting way, and I follow a set of channels. It works on the web, it works on all sorts of things, and it's how I consume at least part of my news. This is not my only news source, but it's definitely one that I recommend. Quora. Quora is astonishing. It's a bit slower than it
This
used to be.
is a demonstration
It
of
used to be that you'd
Wirecast.
go in there and you'd write a question, and usually within a few hours somebody would reply. Now it can take a few weeks. There's so many people on Quora, and they don't necessarily see your questions. But the quality of the questions and answers are really, really good. And if you want to keep in touch with what's going on in a particular area, you follow those topics. And when you go on in the morning, you just look through and you can see what questions people are asking, which is quite interesting. And you can ask your own. But you also see what people are writing back.
This
And they
is
will
a
tell you,
demonstration of
tools
Wirecast.
to help you analyze data. Quora is your friend. Because if anything new happens in the world, people will tell Quora. And so I find that very useful indeed. This is one that sort of bubbled up for me. It was quite interesting a few years ago. Now it's fantastically interesting.
This is a demonstration
If I want
of
to learn about
Wirecast.
anything, if I want to have a question about something, I'll often go to SlideShare and see what's happening. Yesterday, for example, all the main slide decks from South by Southwest were published on SlideShare. So if you missed going to South by Southwest, which we all did, I assume, then actually the slide decks from all the presentations are up there on SlideShare. One of those niche social networks, which most of us don't sort of ignore because it's not Facebook and it's not Twitter.
This
But
is
actually,
a demonstration
much
of
more useful
Wirecast.
to you if you're trying to keep in touch with this stuff. Google Alerts, big data visualization tools I typed in this morning, and here is what is happening. It's got one new result, 36 best tools or whatever. So you can just use this as part of your Google search. But the nice thing is you can say, tell me when this changes. So you just say, I want everything once a day, when the best results, send it to my Gmail, press create alert, and as I say, I have a lot of alerts
demonstration
running
of Wirecast.
that come and tell me that things are happening. I watch airfares, I watch news about a whole range of different topics, and this is often how I find out how new tools and new ideas. So get involved with that. Reddit. It's lots of ways I prefer Hacker News. I think Hacker News is better filtered, but Reddit's good too. And then both part of my
This
world
is a
now. I've
demonstration
integrated
of
them through
Wirecast.
Pulse, so I have both of them inside Pulse, along with TechCrunch and Mashable and Gizmodo, and many of the others that you look at. The trick is to get used to scanning and just go down and say, right, is there anything there that I need to read? And recognize 100% of this is irrelevant to you. Spot the stuff that's relevant, and you've suddenly got the opportunities to become expert in something before somebody else does.
This
Crowdfunding,
is a demonstration of
suggested going
Wirecast.
Kickstarter and having a look at what's being funded, what's on offer, see whether you're interested in it. I know lots of people who are now spending a tenner or 20 quid regularly on participating in Kickstarter, and effectively what they're doing is they're buying a front row seat, watching a project develop, and that's quite a nice thing to do. So, I want to put that together into the final activity of this module, okay? And what I want you to do for this,
This is a
going to be
demonstration
to
of Wirecast.
choose a recent technology news story, one that others might have missed. So I don't want you to choose one of the lists that I've given you here, all right? I want to choose something new. I want you to explain why you've chosen it, and why. I don't just want to say because it's a hot topic or because it's important. I really want you to be passionate about it. I want to be something that affects you, or something that you care about. So when you get into the habit of following those things. I want to select
This
5
is a
different tools
demonstration
and sites
of
to monitor
Wirecast.
this type of story. So maybe one specialist site, one regular news site. Maybe you find the right subreddit to look at, whatever it is you want to do. Explain how the technology involved might disrupt an industry or a market. And then set out an experiment you'd like to do to involve yourself in this or another technology trend. And I've given you a big out at the end, which says, got a great story, follow it through, but can't think of a way of